Hey, I wanted to tell you about one of my favorite love and logic techniques. Jim Fay of the Love and Logic Institute describes a way to provide suggestions for students without necessarily telling them what to do. Because we as counselors, if we start telling kids what to do, then we're not really being counselors anymore. We're just kind of doling out our opinion of what kids should do, rather than allowing them some of that growth and some of that feelings of self-confidence after our interaction. So one of the common things that comes up to us as counselors is students will come and tell us that, oh, my friend doesn't want to be my friend anymore, and she was my friend and now she's not, and they're frustrated by that. And I've run into that both elementary school and middle school so far. And so a lot of the times the kids are wondering what they should do, what steps should they take. And we can just start offering, well, I think you should do this and you should do that. Have you tried this? But a lot of the times, again, that's just us telling the kids what they should do. We're advising without really allowing them the opportunity to make some decisions and use this as an opportunity for their development and their growth. And so the way that Jim Fay describes it is naturally we approach them with a lot of empathic understanding and let them know, yeah, oh man, I can see you're just really sad and upset by this situation. Sounds like you're worried that you're going to lose your friend, and man, if you lose this friend, you might be thinking you're going to lose other friends as well, and you're just worried you're going to end up completely lonely and just you won't have anybody to be your friend. And the students will usually say, yeah, that's right, Mr. Benauer, that's true. That's kind of how I'm feeling. And you know that you're right on target when they say exactly. Once you've interacted with the student in such a way that you have that relationship developed and they know that you're really in tune with them and what they're feeling, you want to offer some suggestions without just saying, here's what you need to do, because again, that's just advising. And so the best technique to ask is to say, well, do you want to hear what other kids have tried who have been in similar situations? And the beautiful thing about that is you're not just telling the kids what they should do. Instead, you're saying, I've talked to other kids and they've been in similar situations. Here's what some of them have tried. And that opens the door, because then they're like, yeah, what have other kids tried in this situation? Now, I'm not completely sure if it's true, but Jim Fay says that you always start with one that you don't think you really want them to do. He says that's because they always reject the first suggestion that you have. So, like in this situation I just presented, when the student's really worried about losing her friend, I could say, well, you want to know what some other kids have tried who've been in similar situations? And they'll probably say, yeah, okay. And you hit them with one that you don't think they should do. And you say, well, I was talking to one girl, and she said, that's it, Mr. Benauer, I am writing her off. Just forget it. If she's not going to be my friend, that's just fine. I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to tell her to get out of my life forever. And then you ask them, how do you think that would work out? And so the opportunity for them is to think about the suggestion and then to consider the consequences of it. And they're developing some wisdom that way to think, well, I don't think that worked very well, Mr. Benauer, because then I've just lost my friend even more because of what I told them. And you say, well, yeah, that's a good point. Another person I know, she had a friend who would get really upset, and this is when you go into some storytelling. She had her friend who would get upset and she would leave. She said we'd be doing something together and all of a sudden she'd get mad and she would just leave. And she told me, she said, well, I've tried all sorts of things, Mr. Benauer. The first thing I tried was I tried chasing her down and saying, oh, come back, I'm sorry, come back. But she just left anyway. And then another time I said, that's fine, I don't care if you leave, just go away. And she just kept on leaving. I said, yeah, it sounds frustrating. And she said, but I know what I'm going to do this time. What's that? She said the next time she gets up to leave, I'm going to yell after her, I hope you're my friend again tomorrow. And then I'm just going to let her keep on walking. And she said, do you know what, I'm going to try to do that, Mr. Benauer? And of course I said, why? And she said, well, that way the last thing she heard was that I still wanted to be friends, but I also realized I have to give her space and let her go. And then you ask again, how do you think that would work out for you? And a lot of times the kids are starting to process some different ideas. They're recognizing that they have options about how to handle that situation. And then you keep going with as many suggestions as you can. I know of another student that I talked with, and she had a friend who would get upset with her, and she started writing her notes. So she would write a little letter, and she'd put it in an envelope, and she would drop it off to her the next day. And in the note, she'd usually say something like, I'm not sure why we're not friends, but I really wish we could be friends again, and just kind of leave it at that. How do you think that would work out? And again, the student would say, well, I guess that might work out okay. And you keep going with more suggestions. I know another girl who had some friends who all of a sudden just seemed really upset with her. She didn't even know why, they were just upset. And she said, I'm going to talk to my other friends and see if they can go talk to her and find out. How do you think that would work out for you? And again, it gives her a chance to think about, it might work, it might not work out. But you offer as many suggestions as you can. You can say, have you ever heard of an iMessage? I know this one student who talked about using an iMessage, and that's where she talked about how she felt about the situation. And so she was telling me, I'm going to try an iMessage, Mr. Banauer. And I said, well, how did that work? Well, she said, I'm just going to tell her how I felt. So I'm going to say, when you stop being my friend like this, I just feel sad and I feel confused because I don't know why you stopped. And then she said, I'm just going to let her think about that, and hopefully we can open up a conversation that way. How do you think that idea might work out for you? See, and after you've offered a couple of these suggestions like this, and whether you're creating them on your own or they're legitimate stories that you've heard, then you finally ask, so what do you think you're going to do about your situation? And the beautiful part about that is it puts all the power of that decision back onto the student. Now she's had the chance to come into you as a counselor and share some of her concerns, and you offered her empathy and support and tenderness. Then you gave her some different ideas without necessarily saying this is what you should do, but you gave her some options to consider, and then you left the whole decision on her by saying, what do you think you're going to do? And through that process, the students feel like, wow, okay, I got some ideas, somebody heard me and understood, and now I have some options that maybe I hadn't thought about. And at that point, that's pretty much all we can do. Because as counselors, we can't really tell our students what to do, and all we can do is offer them the options and offer them ideas on how to cope. But we're not really there to run their lives for them. And this is a really good technique from Love and Logic that I highly recommend and support. I've been using it for a long time, and it works very, very well. So thank you for listening.